Greetings, my fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to another blood-splattered vlog. Now, as I stated in my last vlog, I watched a series of Japanese horror films this last weekend for my birthday, and because of that, I've decided to do a vlog on all the movies I watched. And this week's movie is an extremely weird and super crazy movie by the director of Suicide Club and Cold Fish, simply titled Tag. This movie apparently came out in Japan in 2015 and was completely under my radar for pretty much the last 2 years, and I'm surprised that it was. Because I took one look at the trailer for this movie and just went, holy shit, I need to see this movie. Because the trailer, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's just insane. I don't even want to spoiler it. I just want you to go look up the trailer right now and then watch it, and then come back to this vlog and continue there. Because trust me, if you are not sold on the movie from that trailer, you are not gonna like this movie. But yeah, what can I talk about with this movie without getting into the spoilers? Okay, this is gonna be a little hard, so bear with me. This is a movie about a high school girl at an all-girls school who ends up witnessing everyone she knows getting murdered constantly every scene. And I know what you're thinking, hey, how is she witnessing everyone she knows getting murdered every scene? If everyone she knows was murdered in the first scene, then how are they still alive in the second scene? And that's when I need to explain that this movie is extremely surreal. In fact, it even name drops the word surreal multiple times within its running time. And that's about as far as I can get before the spoilers, because trust me, anything beyond that is too much to know. But what I can say is this movie is extremely fucked up, and it's extremely heart-wrenching, like super heart-wrenching. And you will find your eyes glued to the screen the entire time trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. And I can say that it has a very satisfactory answer when you get to the end of it, though it is a little complicated and takes some time to mull over. And I'll get into my interpretation of that when we get to the spoilers, but trust me, my interpretation is just mine, and I'm sure there's a better one out there. But as far as I can tell, this movie is an extremely great marriage between the grindhouse and the art house. It's an extremely fucked up and just completely exploitative horror movie, but it's also a piece of surrealist art. But then it's not even completely surrealist for the simple reason that it actually has some social points. Yeah, this movie has social commentary within it, like some really fucked up social commentary, but it's there. And I know everything I'm saying right now probably doesn't make any goddamn sense, but this movie's extremely hard to talk about without spoilers. Like I said, go watch the trailer, because the trailer is essentially the opening scene of the movie, and if you're not on board after that, I don't know what to tell you. But I highly recommend it. The movie is extremely well made. It's got some excellent acting. It's got some super fucked up gore effects. It may lean on CGI a little too much, but it's not too big of a problem because it kind of gives it a bit of an anime feel. But yeah, if you like Japanese cinema, if you like Japanese extreme cinema, if you like fucked up surrealist Japanese cinema like The Happiness of the Katakuris, then this movie is 100% for you. And I guess with all that said, my fellow gorehounds, let's move on to the spoilers? Alright, so for those of you who watched the trailer, you already know what the opening scene of this movie is. This opening scene is essentially a bunch of schoolgirls on a bus on the way to something, you don't know what. But mysteriously, the school bus just ends up getting sliced in half with only one girl surviving and everyone else is just cut into pieces. And you're just like, holy shit, what the fuck just did that? Was it the air? And it turns out, yeah, the wind literally killed everyone on the bus except for one girl who now has to run through all the body parts of her friends and try to escape the wind itself. Kind of like that scene in The Happening, except actually done really well. Because in The Happening, it was just laughable and stupid, but in this movie, it's legitimately menacing and legitimately intense and legitimately heart-wrenching. So she runs into the trees because within the trees, she can at least see when the thing's coming at her, because then it will be cutting down the trees along the way, so she at least knows where it is. She ends up coming across this lake where some of the dead bodies flew to, and ends up taking like one of the dead uniforms of one of her friends and putting it on her because hers is just covered in blood. And then she walks into town and ends up stumbling across her school campus, which is an all-girls school, and everyone's still alive. All the girls that were on the bus, they're all alive, and one of them recognizes her but calls her by a different name. Okay, apparently I'm this girl now, but wait, I don't remember anything. Have I always gone to this school? Or has this always been their names? What's going on? So she ends up befriending these 3 other girls, one being this kind of like mousy nerdy girl, one being essentially her best friend who seems to be in love with her, at least that's the impression I got, as well as this tough chick whose name is Sir, otherwise known as Surreal, because she's the weird gothy chick. So they skip class and they end up running out of the campus onto this lake where they end up having this really long conversation about alternate dimensions and the nature of fate. So you're sitting there as the viewer going like, okay, she's caught in multiple dimensions and multiple timelines where she's a different girl each time. Okay, that's what's happening here. Spoilers, that's not exactly what's happening here, but it is related. But yeah, the Surreal gothy chick ends up having this whole explanation that if you want to change your fate, what you essentially have to do is do something that is not expected of you. If you're the calm, collected, nice girl, then you gotta break a table. You just gotta do something that no one would expect you to do in any universe. So you're like, okay, I'm guessing this is gonna come back before the end of the movie, and trust me, it does. So they go back to school, they sit in their homeroom, and then the teachers start machine gun firing all the students. And you watch as systematically these girls that you've grown to really love over the course of these last few scenes just get brutalized by these teachers. But they keep telling the main character, no, you gotta live, you gotta survive, you gotta keep going, you gotta run away, you gotta get out of this. And that's when you realize that these other girls are apparently self-aware about what's going on. They were pretending to play their roles, but they're not actually playing their roles. They're actually trying to give her the tools to survive. And you're like, okay, what is going on? Is this some sort of like weird interdimensional war over this girl? I'm really confused. All her friends end up getting slaughtered by the teachers, and she ends up running downtown and ends up running into a police station where this one girl recognizes her. But the girl calls her a different name, and then she looks in the mirror and realizes, oh shit, I'm a different person now, and she's now being played by a completely different actress. And the police officer's like, oh shit, you're gonna be late to your wedding, and then gets her in a car and then drives her off to a fucking church where there's all these maids of honor waiting for her and like start dressing her up in her wedding gown. But then she runs into her hairdresser, which is one of her friends from the previous reality. And this friend goes, look, I know that you know what's going on, but hold on, just wait here, just keep playing the role, I got this. And then the friend just flat out fucking murders all the maids of honor in these kung fu fights that are fucking intense. And then she hands the main character this broken wine bottle and is like, you're gonna have to kill them, you gotta do this. And you're like, okay, this is starting to feel like kind of video gamey, like a character that's telling you how to play the game. So she ends up going to the wedding, and this is when things go completely off the rails, which I know is saying a lot given what's already happened in this movie. Because as she's walking down towards the altar, all the people within the rows watching her start going from like these crying people that are happy that she's getting married to just completely mocking her like in Carrie. And they all start stripping down into their panties and laughing at her and screaming at her and throwing shit at her. So it goes from a wedding to like a fucking riot, but like a sexy riot? And then she gets up into the altar, and then this giant coffin opens up, and inside the coffin is this pig man, and this is her groom. And they're all like, you gotta kiss him, you gotta marry him, and then she freaks out, stabs him in the fucking neck, and fucking kills the pig man, and then starts killing everybody. And her friend ends up running in and helping her, and then the teachers from the previous reality come in and try to fight her, and they have like this double like kung fu fight. She's then told to run out the door, and she does, and she ends up running into this, essentially this race. And all these girls start recognizing her, and they call her by a different name again, and she looks in the mirror, and now she's a different actress, and she's in a tracksuit. And she's clearly in one of those really long, like multiple mile runs, and she's the one that everyone's rooting for. And by this third reality, you start to notice something. There are no men in these universes. And that's when my brain started to cook, and I started to go like, I wonder, clearly there's a reason why it's all women. Like it could just be for exploitative purposes, because it's an exploitative horror movie, and like the previous scene had all these women like stripping down. But this movie feels like it actually has more of a point, and I was really interested in seeing where it was gonna go with that point. So the pig man and the teachers end up showing up at the race and end up killing everyone in the race, and she is told by her friends who run up to her, the ones from the previous realities, that she needs to run off the course. So she does, but when she does, like all the crowds of people follow her everywhere she goes. It's as if the universe is loading up the world before her as she's moving. And this is when you start to go like, is she in a computer simulation? Is this like the Matrix? So she runs into this cave where she runs into this girl who ends up waving at her and asking her to follow her, and then they run deep into the cave and they run into all these fucking like Ring style ghost girls. And it's super creepy as fuck. It kind of reminded me of the sequence in Silent Hill when they're running past the nurses. And this one girl tries to stab her and kill her to death. And it's just like, if you live, we all die. You must die for us to live. This is all your fault. And this is the first time someone in the movie is blaming her for everything that's going on. So now it's gotten really weird and interesting. Not that it wasn't already weird and interesting before. I guess I've been saying that after every scene. So she saves saved by her best friend, the one that I'm pretty sure is in love with her, and they run off into a different part of the cave where her best friend basically tells her, like, okay, remember your name, say your name. And so she starts saying her name, her original name from the original reality. And then she turns back to the original actress. And then her best friend's like, okay, now that you've done this, you have to do what I tell you. Pull these cables. And on her wrist are these cables. And she's like, you gotta do this, you gotta pull them, you gotta kill me to open the door. And she's crying her eyes out like, I can't do that, you're my best friend, I don't want to kill you. And she's like, no, you have to do this, there's no other choice, otherwise we're all screwed. And this is the first time this girl's echoed anything that like the other girl said, the one that was blaming her. So she reluctantly does it, she grabs the cables from the girl's arms and pulls them and essentially rips her in half. And it leads to this like path of cables, kind of like a yellow brick road of cables that lead into this doorway in the cave that obviously leads into some sort of like future reality. Alrighty then, so I'm gonna be very careful here because I don't want to go into the very ending, but I do want to go into one of the big twists of this movie. So if you don't want to be spoiled for the big twist, stop here. So she goes through the light in the doorway and ends up coming out the other end in a kitchen. But for the first time, you notice something about this kitchen. It's all male cooks. There's actually men in this movie all of a sudden. So she wanders through the kitchen, but no one seems to see her. It's like she's a ghost. And she walks into this alleyway where she ends up seeing this giant poster for a video game. But on the poster of the video game is a picture of her and her other personalities, the other actresses that she was. And she sees a sign that says, The Male World. And I'm gonna stop the spoilers there and just start talking about my interpretation of the movie because holy shit, like, yeah, this has a lot to unpack. So basically what you have here is it turns out that these girls are actually the spirits of dead girls that were put into a video game. And these girls are all dying and being sexualized all for the pleasure of men. Because in this future reality, the real world that she walks into at the end of the movie, there is no women anymore. Or at least if there are women, you don't see any of them. It seems to be mainly men. So in order to get their rocks off, all these men play these games that have all these spirits of girls in them, which apparently were taken directly from the girl's DNA. And I don't know how that's supposed to work scientifically within the movie, but I just rolled with it. So basically this movie has this gigantic social commentary about like essentially women's place within Japanese society. And I honestly didn't take it as actually like criticizing games themselves so much as just the way we see women. Now granted, that's just my interpretation of it. There might be more to it than that I missed because I don't understand Japanese culture as much. But one of the other things I really like is that by the end of the movie, she ends up culminating into this moment where she has to choose to either give in to her role or do the unexpected and completely fuck the system over. It's extremely fucked up and extremely brutal and extremely potent. The movie completely fucked with my mind, man, and it did it in an amazing way. And I'm honestly surprised it hasn't gotten more word of mouth than it has, but then again, I might have just been in the wrong circles. Anyway, my fellow gorehounds, as per usual, like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to ring that notification bell so you can be notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And as I always say, peace out, my fellow gorehounds, and I'll catch y'all later.